All right, Ashlee. Hey, I am so excited to have you on the show today. I know that you and I chatted before we had the pleasure. We should have just recorded it then, but we get you
Probably.
back on the full podcast today. So first of all, welcome and thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Well, you are the Chief Engagement Officer, and I love what we talked about last time about, creating energy and creativity and the passion that you bring to not only your clients, but also to the corporate world. I know that, one of the things that you're super passionate about is the blocks that people have in their life, and especially in leadership, right? We all kind of hit these ceilings, and what you do extraordinarily well is help leaders break through those artificial ceilings or those blocks that continue to hold them back from their true potential. But before we get into that, I'd love for our audience just to get a little bit of more understanding of who you are, and then how did you get into this space?
That's such a great question. Thank you. So I hail from all the way in Canada. I'm close to Toronto.
Won't hold that in.
And yeah, so I think I did like the typical journey that a lot of us go on, the high school, you graduate, university, get a career, like your life is kind of mapped out for you.
Mhm.
And or at least I perceived it to be.
I could
Right?
totally relate. Believe me. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I knew exactly what I wanted to do and where I was going from like
Mhm.
4 years old. So
Yeah. So you go through those steps, and I was working as I, was supposed to be, and had gotten married and was doing life. I was adulting. I
uh
thought that's what I was supposed to be doing. And I hated my job. Like
mm,
hated my job. Sat in the car pretty much every morning and had to give myself a little pep talk.
mm,
Sometimes it was a threatening pep talk, sometimes it was a positive one, to
mm.
get out of the car every morning, to get out of the car and go participate in this job with this culture of toxicity
Mm.
that lived there.
Yeah.
And I didn't think I had a choice, right? I was younger. I was working my way up. I was doing what I thought I had to do.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I got pregnant and I realized as I was like going to become a mom soon that who was I to ever raise a child hoping that he was going to have all these amazing dreams when I was holding myself back from going after my own.
Wow.
Yeah, I always call that like my TSN turning point. For me was just going, how am I going to sit there and tell him to go for his dreams or be brave or do something scary,
Yeah.
or it's okay to be sad, like all of these things that we lead as parents our kids through, but I hadn't done any of it.
Yeah.
And so I got super brave and quit my job while on maternity leave with a brand new baby
Mm.
and started my own business. And my motivation was to have that life that I crave, that life of taking him to school and picking him up from school. And I still get to do that.
Mhm.
Um, Taking days off in the middle of the week if I wanted to, just creating that sense of freedom for myself while making money and financially supporting my family and making a bigger impact in my community. Now, that seemed really nice at
Right.
the time.
Yeah.
And then, as you know, you get into entrepreneurhood, and all of a sudden, you feel like maybe your time's not your own, or getting clients is a little bit harder than you thought it was going to be. And this beautiful time freedom doesn't really seem like it's there.
Right.
And again, it was an opportunity for me to say, how do I want to? Instead of, well, this is just the way it is.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that's been a bit of my journey. And I always just keep reminding myself that my kiddo is watching.
I love that you said that. There's a quote that I've talked to a lot of men about is be the man your son wants to be.
Mm,
And the reason why we talk about that is because just like what you said is that oftentimes we set aside our desires and our excitement for what could be because of the responsibilities we have, right?
Mhm.
And the quote is not meant to say, well, my son wants to be a fireman, so I'm going to go be a fireman. That's not, no, but be the son or be the man your son wants to be, meaning like go after those dreams that your son is constantly coming to you with, going, Dad, I want to do this and I'm going to go do this and I'm going to go do this. And like all of these aspirations that we have as children, before the world tampers with us, right? Before the world sets us back, before the
Yeah.
world sets to try to devastate our dreams, right? And life happens in a sense. So it's such a great reminder. I'm so glad that that was the motivating piece for you and you shared that for us. Before we move on a little bit more, I'd like to go really all the way back to, when you're giving yourself these pep talks, when you're having those hard conversations with yourself in the car, were you starting to feel this anxiety like outside of even your business life in the car? I mean, was it affecting relationships? Was it affecting your mental health? Was it like
Mm.
what was the other side of this as well too?
Yeah, I think I did what a lot of people do, um, and I complained all the time,
Mm.
all the time. I'd get home from work, "How was your day?" Bleh, and I'd verbal diarrhea about how awful my day was, and complain about my colleagues, complain about my boss, complain about the people I served, and I just complaining attracts more complaining.
Yes.
And you
So much.
build collaboration and
Yeah.
commisery.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's what I was doing, and I definitely, did not prioritize sleep or my health, and yeah, all of it started to suffer. So if you ever asked me about my job back then, it definitely wouldn't have come from a place of any form of excitement. Maybe I would have been job searching too, but also feeling like, well, this is just like the devil you know.
Yeah.
So I was also afraid to leave and go somewhere else because
Mm.
I just assumed that it was bad everywhere.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I'd say I was just having a conversation with some coaching clients today, and we were literally talking about this idea of the commiserating and the gossiping and how people are always like people will find that person that they can commiserate with, and then that
Yeah.
just gets built bigger and bigger and bigger. And so I'm really excited to be diving into that. One of the things that you talk about is how to create a thriving culture, how to create a culture of gratitude and value in your working environment. And so I'd love for you to be able to just maybe walk us through a few of those steps, some ideas
Mm,
that you have, things that you see that have been, once they've been implemented, it has changed. Because you're right, over the last 3 years, it's been extraordinarily tough for us. We've gone through some unprecedented times, and people right now are feeling lonely, they're feeling lost, they're miserable in a sense. And we are all trying to figure out, well, what is the remedy? What are the
mhm.
things that we can do that are bringing life back into us?
Yeah, and I love kind of switching gears and focusing on that because that was a huge piece for me even once I had quit and started my own business was to change my mindset from complaining
Mm.
to celebrating.
Yeah.
And so I will say that's one of my biggest tips is to celebrate the wins. And as leaders, when you are leading a team and you are celebrating a win, your team starts to look for the positive. When
Mhm.
you ask your team, I love to do this with teams and say every week, every Friday, everyone's going to celebrate a win. And it's your win, your personal win, not, me telling you what I think your win is
Mhm.
or me praising you for something good that you've done, but instead you coming to the table and saying, I'm really proud today, this week, I'm celebrating this. And as a leader, it gives you so much insight as to what your team considers to be a win.
Mhm.
And it helps your team celebrate each other. And all week they're thinking, I got to come up with a win.
Yeah.
So you're starting to look for the positives.
Yeah.
And as we've been going through this, cycle of work and hybrid and virtual and all the different things going on, I found with teams who start practicing this, my win might be I'm on this awesome podcast. And then the next one might be I've done a lot of great presentations. And then I might have a couple of weeks where my win is I showed up today.
Mm.
And as a leader, when you start hearing, I got out of bed,
Yeah.
or today I'm only celebrating that I showed up to work today,
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
gives you a clue,
Yep.
right? Now your team is not, in silence. You have these clues. And as a leader, it empowers you to do something about it, to check in with your team, because now you know each other differently. So, helping change that mindset, I think, is one of the easiest, it costs nothing,
Right.
it's free, um, ways to shift that intention. Another one is gratitude. How often do we go through life and you're getting critical feedback or constructive criticism, but we also don't live a lot in thank you. A lot of leaders think, well, I thank them by paying them.
Mhm.
Or even with clients, I thank them by doing a good job for them. No, right? Remember, your team is choosing to spend their time with you. Your
Yeah.
clients are choosing to invest their money with you. So going the extra mile and saying thank you for your effort on this, or thank you for being a client, shifts that dynamic so much.
Mm.
Once you feel valued by someone, your loyalty goes through the roof,
Yeah.
right? Referrals start to happen. Maybe even you're recruiting a new team member and you go to your employees and say, who would be an awesome person to bring on board?
Right.
Right? But when you have a culture of gratitude and people truly feel appreciated for their individual contributions, you know, they tend to show up to work and be way more productive for you.
Let's go back to the first one that you said there, and I
Mm,
thought that was such great insight because a lot of leaders, once again, they're so as much as they feel like they're communicating, most leaders are not great communicators. Most
mhm.
human beings
People.
are not great communicators, and we're all striving to be better. We're not like intentionally not trying to. We just we have all the conversations in our head and they don't often get outside. I mean, we
Mhm.
appreciate people in our head, but we don't necessarily verbally actually express this. But I love what you talked about at the beginning of like, tell me a win. I'd love to know, like, what is a win for you? You say, first of all, you stated because the important thing in that is that you get to see where their state of mind is, which I think is absolutely brilliant. That's a great way. It's a great indicator for who you really need to be checking up on.
Mhm.
Right. I think another thing that really helps out, and when you ask that question too, as I've had some time to think about that, was you really figure out like what's a priority to them. Right. You might look at it and go, well, I mean, Ashley, like your win was that you just closed that $1 million account. And you're going, honestly, the win that I got was that I left at 3 o'clock in the afternoon so I could pick up my son.
Yes.
And you're going,
Yes.
okay, I see where the priorities are at. I know that like if I can bless Ashley in the future as a leader, as a boss, so to speak, I know that I can give her time off so that she can be
Mhm.
with her family, which is her number one priority, and not but I just gave you a $2 million client. Like, are you not happy with it? If anything, it'd be like, well, it's more stressful, and that might, now I know it's going to take more time, and I'm going to have to like miss more time with my kiddos or whatever the case may be. So, I think that's great. I love that you are able to identify that and help leaders be able to use that as a great tool for them.
Yeah. We do a lot of mind reading, right? We
Yes,
we do a lot of
we do a lot of
conversations
assuming.
in our heads, a lot of assuming, a lot of mind reading. And I was working with a client not too long ago, and it was a group of 35 new managers. So they were managing up to a partner level, but also had team members that they were managing. And the number of conversations that they have in their head
Yes.
with
Yes.
what they assume their bosses are going to say if they set a boundary, or what their bosses might say if they don't check their email while they're on vacation. They have these whole conversations in their head. And then they do it to those they lead as well.
Yep.
It just trickles down.
Mhm.
And I ask them, I'm like, who here knows how your team member likes to receive appreciation? Out of 35, not a single hand went up.
Wow.
And I said, who here knows how to find that out? One person put up their hand and said, ask them. was like, yes, like we just have to ask.
It is.
And
Yes.
we're so nervous. We've again, this is where those blocks and stories that we tell ourselves come into play.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, yeah, I do that. This is likely a story you're telling yourself and it's holding you back.
Mhm.
That we're so afraid to communicate because we are telling ourselves that they're going to perceive it in some other way, or we might hurt their feelings, or they're going to not like me. We come up with a million reasons why not to, and not one single one of why we should.
Yeah. Yep. So good. Well, speaking of blocks, let's
Mm,
keep going down this path here because we are getting into the end of the year. I don't know about you, but what we're seeing so much in uh people toward, at this the fourth quarter and the end of this fourth quarter is it's exhaustion, right? It's I'm tired, I'm fatigued, I'm worn out, my cup is dry, and they're getting to that point where just like, okay, I just don't even want to, just like you said a long time ago, I just don't even show up. I'm just like,
yeah.
I'm mentally fried. What is it that we can do as leaders to help rejuvenate their spirits? What can we do as leaders to help rejuvenate and fill their cups in order for them to, finish the year strong, be excited about this month, take this month as an opportunity to really start to pour into themselves. And we as leaders, how do we fill our own cup through, once again, that exhaustion period?
Yeah. So I think that's my first tip right there is, okay, so as parents, they often tell you it's very hard to, be there for your kids or be there for your partner when you yourself are running on empty.
Yeah.
And the same goes for leaders. So again, so many leaders, we're trained to serve others. And when we are not prioritizing our own health and our own joy and our sleep or whatever it is that you truly need to fill your cup, you cannot give to your team if your cup is not full.
Yeah.
So my first piece is you have to start filling your cup. And what that looks like for each individual person is individual,
Mhm.
right? There is no prescription. There is no follow this 3-step template, but it's really ask yourself, what brings me joy? Or how do I want to feel? If not this, then what?
Mhm.
And if it's not busy, do you want to feel calm? What makes you feel calm? When was the last time you felt calm? And how can you give yourself a taste of that? I think one of the challenges that we face this time of year is we start thinking about next year while reflecting on this past year.
Mhm.
And a lot of us have this all or nothing attitude, and we
Mm.
want to do it all right away. So instead, I always encourage people to take small bites, set one goal, figure out how you want to feel for 1 week,
Mm.
and just focus on that feeling or that one goal and take action that helps you get there. Instead of saying, I want this to be the biggest year we've ever had, and here's the 92 steps we're going to take to get there. And it's overwhelming, right?
I'm only laughing because if my staff was around, they'd
Oh, do
probably be
you
like,
do this?
I might be doing that a little bit. I'm a visionary. That's what I do. You got to set those big
Yeah.
goals out there. So
So
there's
it's good to
a,
start big, but we have to
yeah,
carve our way down to the small bite size habits because
yeah,
when we start big, that's where overwhelm comes in.
yeah,
So
yeah.
instead of already thinking about what you're doing for New Year's or how you're celebrating with the holidays, just break it down into small, tangible actions.
Mhm.
Check in with your team, get a pulse check. How are they feeling? And what is one thing that they want to change or one feeling that they'd love to release or have by the end of the year? And if it is an extra day off, can you do that? Can
Mhm.
you can you give them an extra day off? Can you let them take an afternoon to go Christmas shopping so they don't feel that weight and that pressure of the ticking clock?
Mhm.
Um, Finding out how they would love to be appreciated or celebrate with the team. But as leaders, we have to lead by example. And if we're running around scrambling, hustling, panicking, that energy goes off to our teams and it goes off to our clients as well,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? It does not stop with your team because your team is dealing with your clients.
Yeah.
So just that energy, you set the tone. And it is a lot of pressure, but it comes with the territory.
Sure. Well, yeah, exactly. With great responsibility, great becomes great opportunity as well too. So,
Mhm.
everybody, like those in leadership have raised their hand, and you get all of the benefits, but you get all of the weight as well too.
Yeah.
So, so one of the things that you specialize in, and we've talked a little bit before prior to this show, was hypnotherapy and breath work. And I love
Mhm.
the fact that you do breath work. That has been something that I've put into my morning routine. It's been something that I do kind of, in those stressful moments when I am aware of those stressful moments and I can remove myself from the situation a
Yeah.
little bit, get my breathing under control. I'd love for you to maybe share a few tips and pointers for people as we get into this kind of a busy season. Not every one of us like being around our family. Not every one of us like being around a lot of people. Maybe some of us know that there's going to be a lot of exhaustion because of all of the responsibilities in this month coming up. So, what are some things that people can implement into their days or into those moments where there is some stress?
Yeah. So I guess my first piece is I would just love to challenge the thinking that you have to do any of those things.
Mm,
There is, I think that if you feel that way, you really truly feel that way, consider where you need boundaries.
mhm.
And again, start small. I know that it can be a very uncomfortable challenge for many to set boundaries, especially with your family, especially during the holidays. But that's aside. The other piece is I also practice breath work every morning. So breath work is one of the quickest ways to get in touch with your body. So get out of your mind, right? So our mind is constantly thinking and telling us stories, and our body is having these reactions to the stories we're telling ourselves. So
Mhm.
when you feel yourself get activated, right? So maybe you get a little sweaty or you feel your heart rate go up or that nervous energy, that is your body reacting to something your mind is likely telling it. And we really want to start trusting that our body knows how to keep us safe
Yeah.
and our body knows how to calm us down, right? Our brain does a lot of it, but really, if we can switch and let our bodies tell our brain that we're safe or, you know what, this is okay. I have the time to take a breath. It actually changes the whole dynamic and
Yeah.
it's really, really rewarding.
Yeah.
So there's lots of different ways to do breath work. I love the Pause app. So it's Pause. There's
Mhm.
an app that you can try out. They have lots of different lengths of breathing. And if you're about to go into, let's say, a podcast interview, but feeling a little nervous, you can pop in a 3-minute breath work and just be guided.
Mm.
I love the guided piece to it as well. Again, it helps me not think
Yes.
and just be in the moment.
Yeah.
Breath work is all about being instantly in the moment and really realizing how much choice and control you have. Because so often that's what we don't feel, right? We don't feel like we have choice and we don't feel like we're in control.
Right. Well, and I'm going to just pause you just really quick
Mhm.
because I know that you're speaking to both men and women, and I'm sure that the
Absolutely.
guys that are out there that are listening to this, like, oh, I'm not doing breath work. I will tell you, gentlemen, as a man, like this is one of the best things that you can do for yourself because
Mm.
there are times where we feel like we're in control, but we're really not in control. Right. We allow those emotions to overcome us. And there's times where, we've gotten into a situation, whether it's because maybe one of our children did something that they shouldn't have done and now we have to be the authoritarian in this, and then
Mm.
or maybe we are, we're leading a team and there's some disappointment or miscommunication, and it's not going the way that we want to, and then we go in there with maybe not the right temperament for that
Mhm.
situation. Just applying these steps and these breath works. And just like you said, the guided, I think, is really important, especially as you're first starting out, because
Yeah.
there is so much noise in our head that even if we try to do it and we're doing it by ourselves, we're so focused on the noises that we don't really get anything out of it. And then we go, well, this didn't work.
Yeah.
So I think the guided one is I would highly recommend as if you're starting this out.
And I will say too, men and women, again, it comes down to what you're telling yourself. So if you are feeling activated and maybe frustrated with your team or your children or whatever is going on, somebody cuts you off driving, right? You're feeling that anger, we have a natural first reaction,
Mhm.
but it does not have to be how we have an out loud reaction.
Yeah.
And I find with practicing breath work, we're able to calm our nervous system down so we don't have that big, loud, immediate reaction. You can feel your feelings 100%, but it doesn't have to, like I always say this to my son, you can feel it. You don't have to be mean to other people.
Hmm.
And I'll give you a great example too. So my son is 10 and he was playing, I'm going to make a baseball reference here for you. He was final championship game and the coach told him he was the pitcher and he started crying instantly because that fear of
Yeah.
failure,
A lot
they
of
had
pressure.
never beat this team before. So he immediately told himself, I don't want to be the kid that loses the final game.
Yes. Yep.
And he went away. He went off and was pitching and throwing and warming up. And I just said to him, remember that you have the tools inside of you to change how you want to show up.
Hmm.
And he went that entire game on the mound, breathing in between every pitch. I could see him up there taking a deep breath in and releasing it. And
Mhm.
he's 10. If a 10-year-old can figure out how to regulate their emotions in what
Yeah.
to them would be a very heavy, nerve-wracking situation, high pressure,
Oh yeah, this is like the most intense he's probably already had in his life, right?
ever,
Yeah.
ever.
So,
And he
yeah.
smiled his entire way through that game because he decided that's how he was going to show up.
Yeah.
And that's how we can all do that. We
Yeah.
can all decide at the start of the day how we want to show up. And if situations come at us, we always have a choice. We have the choice to believe the old story or to decide to take a different path,
Mhm. So
right?
good.
It's not
Well,
perfect. Hey, it's not
right. Well, I
perfect.
I love you gave everybody permission though. This is the thing is that once again is that we feel like, oh, because the expert says it or because other people probably don't feel this way, then I'm going to beat myself up for feeling it, even though you might have done everything else great because you didn't react on it. You didn't you didn't externally say something about it, but you still felt it.
Mm,
And we beat ourselves up because we felt it. And so thank you for giving everybody permission to be able to feel, but don't react outwardly if those emotions are not the best for you or
yeah,
anybody else around you. So I think that was
yeah.
great.
And breath work does help you process those emotions,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
That's what it's about. It's moving the energy through your body so that when you are frustrated that someone cut you off in traffic, or maybe you lost a really big client or something, there are good and bad things that happen to us every day, and it's going to continue happening.
Yeah.
It's when you keep it all in that they pile on top of each other and then you erupt.
Yep.
When
Yep.
you can deal with them as they come, it's a game changer for
Yeah.
sure.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, Ashley, I have so enjoyed this. I always love dealing. I always like talking about blocks and how we overcome them. I love how we talk about communication. Thank you for sharing about breath work and how important that is. And then, of course, I
Mhm.
just appreciate you giving people permission because I think a lot of the times we just need somebody else to confirm that. We need somebody else's confirmation or affirmation in order for us to
Yeah.
move on to because we're not strong enough to do it on our own, right? And so
Mhm.
that's why we hire people like you to come and impact and influence our lives. So speaking of that, where can people find you? Where can they track you down? Where can they start following you? Because I'm sure that there's a lot of people just kind of raising their hand going, I love what she's saying. I want to just get more tips. I want to figure out how I can get a little bit more into Ashley's world.
Yeah, thank you. So I am active on LinkedIn, spend a lot of time there. Ashlee.Livingstone. That's where you can find me on LinkedIn. I also spend time on Instagram because people say I should.
Yes.
LinkedIn's my preference, but
Okay.
I'm also on Instagram, same thing, Ashlee.Livingstone. And yeah, I think my ultimate goal is to show people that life does not have to be so messy and hard all the time,
Yeah.
right? That we really do get a choice in how we show up, but the magic lives in taking action,
Love it.
right?
Absolutely. Taking action. That's exactly right. Well said right there. So, well, lady, I am so appreciative of you being on the show. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I know you're busy and I know you got a lot of clients out there waiting for you. So, thank you
Thank
for
you.
this moment and this time.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
You bet. All right, you guys. Well, you heard it here. Look at this. I tell you what, it's always good. And first of all, like I said, it's always good to get permission, right? Sometimes we know what to do. We want to do it, but we haven't given ourselves permission. So having people that have authority in our lives, having people that we trust, that they're the experts, when they give us permission, we can take action on it. So thank you for Ashlee coming in and giving us that permission to take action in our lives in the ways that we need to do it. And you know, the only cost of this podcast here is to share this. We know somebody in your life, just somebody that you care about needs to hear those words of affirmation, those words of breath work, and those opportunities to give themselves permission to take action in their life. So share it. Absolutely love you. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon.